Imagine paying a monthly subscription to access an online gaming hub. This would allow you to play full games, try demos, and access other unique features. Sounds pretty revolutionary, not entirely dissimilar to Xbox Live or the PlayStation Network. Now imagine being able to access this service back in 1993 on your Sega Mega Drive. Sega were always innovators in the hardware space, and there's nothing that demonstrates this better than the Sega Channel. Introduced for initial testing back in June 1993, the Sega Channel was Sega's attempt to expand the market. Interestingly, it was not the first time they had dabbled in connecting the internet to their 16-bit stallion. In 1990, they had released the Mega modem in Japan that would allow Japanese players to connect to the Sega MegaNet. Although it was planned to roll this service out in other countries, the high cost and the lack of software meant that the service was a costly failure. It wasn't a total waste though, as it gave Sega the experience they needed to give their online dream another shot with the Sega Channel a few years later. To access the channel, players would require both a Mega Drive console and a subscription to a cable television service through one of the partnered companies such as Time Warner. Access to the Sega Channel would add $15 a month to the cable bill. This entitled the player to access the Sega Channel through a special adapter they would plug into the Mega Drive's cartridge slot.
Setting up to play is easy with Sega Channel. Here's how it works. Take the Sega Channel adapter from your cable company and plug it into the Sega Genesis. Turn on the Sega Genesis and the TV.
It would take about 30 seconds after powering on the console to reach the main menu, where players could access the various games and features of the service. Sega provided players with a monthly rotation of content, including full games, demos, and cheat codes. To play a game or demo, the software would be downloaded to the Mega Drive's RAM via the cable connection. This would take a few minutes, depending on the location of the player relative to the provider. After this, players could continue with their selected game as normal. The game would then be lost when the console was powered down, and would have to be downloaded again next time the player signed into the service. There are a lot of benefits to being a Sega Channel member. For one, the monthly selection of games often included relatively new releases. This gave players the opportunity to try games out for an extended period of time before buying them. This was particularly important in the console era, where cartridges were much more expensive to buy. It also gave Sega the opportunity to provide access to games never released commercially in America, such as Pulseman and Alien Soldier. It would be too financially risky to manufacture these niche games for release in the NA region, but the Sega Channel provided a low-cost alternative. Sega could help to build their community through competitions. For example, when Primal Rage was available, players who beat the game within a 24-hour period were given a phone number to call in order to win prizes. The service also had a positive effect on cable companies as a whole. Many of the players received a digital signal via satellite rather than through a direct connection to the provider, meaning that cable companies were forced to clean up the signal in order to provide a reliable connection to the Sega Channel. This had an interesting knock-on effect where other channels benefited as well, because a clearer signal meant better service for everyone. This was one of the first widely available digital distribution services for games. It's not surprising then that it wasn't perfect. The biggest problem was the timing of the service's release. Hitting its peak in the mid-90s, the Sega Channel was a service for a console lost in the hype of the new 32-bit and 64-bit consoles, including Sega's own 32-bit offering, the Saturn. Whilst the service was extremely modern, it was linked to a console that was clearly on its way out, and this severely hampered the uptake of the service. This ensured that Sega could not get the number of monthly subscribers that they had hoped for. An extra $15 a month for access to games for a dying console was simply more than what most people were prepared to pay. It was also too fiddly for many younger gamers to bother with. Waiting for a while to load the menu, then to wait for the game, then to lose the game when you turn off the console and have to start over next time, it was simply too much for players used to changing games at a whim. Despite these issues, the Sega Channel was actually a huge success, attracting hundreds of thousands of subscribers. It stayed operational until 1998, well into the lifespan of the Sega Saturn, and even into the start of the rumours for the following Sega Black Belt. Take the modern distribution platforms like Steam. Would they have existed without the Sega Channel? Probably not. Even if it had been a complete disaster, it would still have been worthy of praise. The fact that it was actually pretty good, that's just a nice little bonus. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of The Game Room. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter. And now I'm going to leave you with the Game Room quote of the week.